and welcome to Great British Ghosts. Later, I'll be heading to London, to one of the most haunted pubs in the city. But first of all, I've come to Nottingham, to the Galleries of Justice, a place where thieves and murderers would have been tried, jailed, and some of them even hanged right on these very steps. It's a building with a long and horrible history. This current building was used as a courthouse and jail since 1780. And over the last 230 years, literally hundreds of prisoners have been executed here. Not surprisingly, it's believed to be one of the most haunted locations in Britain. Chris Arnold is a paranormal investigator who's experienced strange phenomena both in the cells below and in the main courtroom upstairs.
Okay, so we're in the main courtroom now. This was actually used up until 1986, so it's used, fairly recently. It's one of the hubs of paranormal activity in the Galleries of Justice. The main thing that's seen is black shadows darting kind of back and forth on the balcony. Many different people have seen these. And then the other thing that I personally witnessed in here, we had a public kind of ghost hunt, and we all saw flashing lights up on this corner. It's very strange. There, as you can see, aren't any lights up there at all.
What do you mean flashing lights?
It was like almost like firework effects,
really?
Like glittery, yeah, kind of balls of light. It was just very strange, can't explain it. The thing that a lot of people have heard in here, blood-curdling screams, moans, sighs, just the sound of people just in kind of sheer agony or despair.
Well, there must have been a lot of despair in here. I mean, this is where people were sentenced to either their misery or their death. Yeah. And obviously, relatives that were sitting listening.
Exactly.
I mean, not only the victim themselves, but the relatives would have been in massive despair, wouldn't they?
So if you imagine coming in here and hearing that your loved one, is going to be hanged outside on the steps, there are going to be people moaning and all kinds of horrible feelings. The other interesting thing that happened in here in 1799 was they actually did a public dissection on the table here, and members of the public paid to come and watch one of the hanged people be cut up and have his entrails kind of displayed. Now, it was supposed to act as a deterrent to show that this is what would happen after you got hanged, but it was so popular that they had to stop it because people saw it as a great day's entertainment.
Oh, that's terrible, isn't it? Weren't they barbaric in those days?
Well, exactly.
Where's the empathy?
The Galleries of Justice is known as one of the most haunted places in the UK. In one study, it was kind of voted the most haunted building in the UK. There's a lot of activity that happens here.
Once the accused were found guilty, there was only one way for them to go, and that was down to either misery or execution.
Michaela, welcome to the county jail. Would you like to follow me?
Thanks.
I should take you down to our main cell block, which is located just around the corner here, where men and women were mixed all those years ago.
This way?
Down here, yes.
There are just over a dozen cells in all, stretching further and further underground. The oldest ones dated back to medieval times, and the conditions here, even just over a century ago, must have been appalling.
Down this corridor are main cells, but when this prison was full to capacity, you get about 70 odd inmates in around 15 cells on a couple of levels here. This is what we call our night cell.
Oh. So not terribly big?
No, and you've also got to bear in mind you have to share this space. So you're not by yourself by any means. This is designed for 3 inmates. So you and 2 strangers, you can still see the rings on the wall where the hammocks used to be.
Oh, so they'd actually get a bed?
Oh, only if you pay, I'm afraid. If you didn't have any money, then you sleep on the floor. That is also your privy, so be careful where you lie down.
Privy, you mean toilet?
I'm afraid so, yeah. And it's your responsibility to clean it out in the morning.
And how long would prisoners have to stay here for?
Well, it's a night cell, so only locked actually in the room in the night. They would let you out in the day, which is nice of them. But you could be here for 2 weeks to up to a month. You're just passing through. You might be transported to Australia or executed in a couple of weeks. So you're just passing through to another location. You're not going to stay here for years, which is a good thing. I don't think you'd live that long if you did have to.
Obviously, there's been a lot of torment, a lot of pain and misery here, and a lot of death. So the first type of haunting we believe to be a kind of replay or an echo of things that would have happened here in the past. The second type of haunting we call intelligent haunting, where we believe it's an actual spirit, the soul of someone who has died, who is still active here, still walking the building, taking an interest in what is going on, and interacting with people.
This is actually probably the most modern part of the jail. Here we have the women's wing, the laundry, where women are expected to do washing all day long, 8 hours in fact, in silence.
So they weren't allowed to talk?
Oh no, talking spreads criminal activity.
That's tough for women.
It is very tough, yes. In fact, I've walked through here a few times and on a number of occasions, the old dolly tub there has been rattling away.
By itself?
Maybe someone didn't finish their work, I don't know. But yes, it is a bit strange when it's quiet.
That just moves all by itself, making a noise. Yes. That's quite creepy.
It is a bit creepy when you're on your own. But in here is where they would sleep. This is their cell.
So this is the women's quarters in the prison?
It is the women's room. This was built in the 1850s for all the girls in one room. So you can imagine 6 to 10 girls sharing one space. So of course in the evening you're incarcerated, so you'd be locked up and that's where you'd be sleeping, in a bed with your hair in it, off your own head, in a mattress. And you do have a chamber pot for the loo. So not on the floor, thank goodness.
Stephen, I've got to say though, compared to upstairs, this isn't that bad.
No, it is the most modern part of the jail, but it does get a lot worse, I'm afraid.
Do most people feel that it's an uncomfortable, scary environment?
Most people find the Galleries of Justice to be very scary. Now, whether this is because of suggestion, because they know it to be haunted, or because of what a negative atmosphere kind of lingers here from what it was in the past when it was actually used as a prison.
Gosh, it gets dark down here. This already feels grisly.
Yeah, you'll need your light here, I'm afraid, because this is what we call the dark cells.
And what is this bit?
Ah, now that is one of our 2 pits where you would go if you couldn't pay for that cell upstairs, remember?
People were put in there?
Yeah, if you've got no money, but that's for the real low lives, you see.
And what sort of era is that then?
That's from the 18th century.
And how long would they be in there?
Maybe until you're being transported to Australia. Could be a month, 2 months.
Oh my goodness, that is really grim and grisly in there, isn't it?
Well, you can see why they pay now for something better. Yes. Whilst over here we have our solitary confinement cells, dark cells as they're called.
Oh goodness gracious, what did you have to do to come in here?
Cause trouble whilst you're in the jail mainly. In fact, I believe many paranormal groups love to go in here and see how long they can actually stand it. I think the record is about 10 minutes on their own. Now this leads to the exercise yard, and although it's outside, it's actually supposed to be the most haunted part of the building.
Well, I'm not surprised, because the first thing I can see is the gallows.
Yes, public hangings were abolished in the 1860s and it was moved into this yard.
And how many people were hanged here?
One.
Just one?
Man, one man who had slit a young lady's throat was executed in this yard in 1877. So he had his neck broken by William Marwood, very good hangman, and then he was buried beneath this yard.
And how many people are buried under here?
Well, if you look on the wall behind you, you can still see the headstones of some of these condemned men. We're not sure how many are actually buried here because you didn't always get a headstone. So these are the lucky ones. This is the man I just mentioned, Thomas Gray, who was hanged in this very yard. The rest of them were hanged in the street outside.
So this area has a lot of paranormal activity. What have you seen?
Well, me personally, I was actually talking to somebody as I am right now to you, and out of the corner of my eye I saw a movement, and I looked up and saw a figure move through that doorway there, across that archway, a figure in what looked like a jailer's outfit. It made me look twice. I actually went over and checked afterwards to see if anyone was there, and there wasn't. And it did make me think, ooh, that's very strange, because I wasn't used to it, you see.
Is that an apparition that's been seen before?
Yes, apparently somebody has seen a lot at the top of the stairs as well, coming down into the yard.
And have you seen it since?
I haven't, but somebody else has. Strange thing about the building is it's constructed on the back of a cliff. So you come in at street level, you go down from the courts, down to the jail, and you go down a number of levels until you reach the sandstone at the bottom, which is of course all been carved out here into caves, as you can see.
Stephen took me down to the deepest and oldest part of the jail and handed me back to paranormal investigator Chris Arnold, who wanted to show me the most haunted area in the whole place.
Oh my goodness, look at this. What was down here?
So we've got down here used to be a chapel. Used to be used as a chapel area. A lot of people have heard the sound of what appears to be kind of chanting, maybe monks, kind of religious mantra being chanted over and over again.
So there was an actual chapel down here? What a weird place to have a chapel.
Yeah, the area would have been used as a chapel, so we believe anyway. We've had a few strange experiences down here. The most common thing that we have found, and other groups have found, is stones are thrown at the group that are down here investigating.
Actually thrown?
Yeah, by kind of unseen hands.
And not
Very
coming from the
strange.
roof?
That's obviously our first thought. We check, can bits of, the sandstone kind of fall off. That might explain the odd occurrence, but we've had it happen on request. So we've basically, said if there is anyone with us, can you throw a stone? And a stone has been thrown across the room.
Have there been any other experiences like that where there are physical feelings of having spirits and ghosts around you?
Yes, the Galleries of Justice is perhaps a little unusual with the amount of actual physical, what we would term kind of poltergeist type activity. So upstairs on the main cell corridor, people have had doors slam in their face. And one of the things a lot of people report is that they've been walking along and felt like someone has just pushed past them, and there's been absolutely no one there. And it leaves people feeling very, very frightened.
So would you say this is one of the main places for paranormal activity, right down here?
Yes, down here in the caves appears to be, where the most paranormal activity happens.
I'll tell you, whether there are ghosts here or not, I don't like this place.
It's not nice, is it?
It's eerie and it's just horror stories, real nasty stories in here.
If there are such things as ghosts, it's no surprise that they would be here at the Galleries of Justice. The amount of suffering, negative feeling that has occurred here over almost 700 years, it's no surprise that the place is haunted.
The Galleries of Justice were closed with the prison reform in the late 1800s, shortly after the last person was hanged. They closed literally overnight, so it's not surprising that there are a few lost and tormented souls still floating around. I'll tell you something, I find this place extremely eerie and shocking.